before we get into talking about AVSs, because I think that a lot of the discussions that I'm involved with on panels are extremely boring. So let's try to I do want to start off with something that's not specific to AVSs, that is more specific to what's happening this week, and more specifically what happened yesterday with was it Justin Drake that gave that talk about Beam? I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? Because I know that this affects everyone probably in this room in some way, because like we're all building on some abstraction of Ethereum. So I'm very curious to understand what your thoughts are around things like the ossification of Ethereum, or should Ethereum continue to innovate and try to compete on speed and performance? Because you're building AVSs, and underlying an AVS is Ethereum in some form or fashion. So curious what some of your thoughts are, and then we'll jump into the AVS specific stuff.
Yeah, so I can kick things off unless you want to, Altan. No, go ahead. But I mean, I think there were 2 points that were very relevant to us yesterday at Lagrange. The first being the fact that Ethereum is moving in a direction that is verifiable, right? And so I like to tell the story that several years ago I was in San Francisco, and I was at the start of Lagrange, and someone told me that within 3 years everything would be a cross-chain app. And at the time it was kind of like for me, a silly statement. The idea that like some parachain on Polkadot was going to interop with a DEX on Cardano was a little bit fanciful. But it was very prescient, because we look at Ethereum today, and I can't think of a single DeFi app that doesn't take a wrapped token, and I can't think of a very few DeFi apps that don't have multi-chain deployments, right? What the person recognized was a directional trend. And so I think what we see on Ethereum today is a move for every app to be verifiable. It'll use exogenous data proven with zk-TLS. It'll extend its execution with a ZK coprocessor. It'll sit on a base layer that's ZK proven, or on an L2 that's ZK proven as well. All interop will also use ZK. And so I think there's a directional trend that we can see that Ethereum has really been at the forefront of. And I think we can also see a bit of uncertainty over timelines of reaching there because of concerns over performance. And that's why I think we see the 5-year conversations, right, that some people might think is a little bit too slow, and other people might think is a little bit too optimistic.
Yeah, well, there were many things mentioned in yesterday's talk by Justin Drake, and I think the most important thing is that although there are going to be several incremental updates that is planned in the roadmap, the important thing is now there's kind of a new vision to have a forklift upgrade to also include entire Ethereum consensus process in a snarkified fashion. The reason this is important is that this is really signaling like the ZK is eating the world, right? So we started the entire ZK evolution starting from very, very specific circuit, building very specific applications like DAXs, like StarkX, like DYDX, built on StarkX, and then evolved into generalized ZK EVM, which is trying to verify and prove the entire EVM execution process. And then we start to have ZK coprocessor that can enable massive amount of computation on chain. And finally, we're moving towards the stage where the entire consensus process of Ethereum will be driven and will be verified in Starks as well. So this is really important because this enables many exciting things for Ethereum, because now we have a snarkified consensus protocol. Then what it means is that it can change, for example, the cross-chain landscape. Right now, Ethereum's signature scheme, like BLS signature, is very unfriendly to build things like ZK Bridge or ZK consensus client. But with hash-based signatures, things drastically changes. Like we can actually have very low amount stake for each of the node validators, but at the same time have massive amount of consensus power bridged into other ecosystem as well. So I think this is like kind of a really signaling that we are reaching a maturity of the ZK technology in general, and really pushing forward to that, which is super exciting.
Okay, so bullish ZK, the two of you.
Yeah. Put in a sentence, yes.
Okay, so there's one thing I really like, which is going from 32 ETH to 1 ETH as a base validator to join a network, which is quite nice because what we hear is for decentralization, taking those, increasing the number of validators in the network. But the other thing that we've been discussing internally, because we've been trying to understand what this means, we actually moved from proof of work, but I actually put proof of stake. Don here actually mentioned this today, was like, does this mean that actually we're between, like if we're doing a lot of proving from the validator side, does this mean is it a bit like proof of work? Well, I'll leave it to you guys to kind of think about that.
I think for us, I think there are no many differences point for us because we focus on the user security. So I think this change for us, we just focusing on our user security intelligence and protect the Ethereum users for that. So sorry, I don't have many other ideas about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just chime in on my thoughts. I tweeted today my thoughts. I feel like Ethereum has never been fast and it's never been cheap. So I don't understand why all of a sudden everyone expects it to keep up with Solana in terms of being fast and cheap. It has a lot of properties that nothing else has though, relative to what it does. So it's very hardened, it's very secure, it's very trusted, and it's a very good base layer for building out roll-ups and all types of services now with AVSs. And it's interesting because you can actually build blockchains that are much faster and much more performant than Solana by just leveraging Ethereum security. So I don't understand why this whole discussion has become so almost in the forefront where you didn't really see it as much in the past. So I shared my thoughts today about that, but that's just my general. I thought it was just an interesting topic to touch on for a moment.
Can I add something for that? So basically, what I've seen over the, I guess, last 6-7 years, in the bear markets, people really value these things like consensus and keeping the value of store. In the bull markets, you have these new L1s. There's always this interest coming too, and then that's what Ethereum is great, right? If you go back to bear market, people always want to hit that, right? I think that shows that in the long term, Ethereum is still very, very important.
I just want to highlight one thing that you said, Nader, that I think is very prescient, and that is the fundamental value that Ethereum offers is a highly decentralized validator set and then an incredibly large amount of capital behind the POS validators. And this is why, personally, I think EigenLayer is such an intuitive product and such a naturally aligned product with Ethereum, because it takes the two things that Ethereum is singularly good at and allows it to be extended to other applications that can't fit within a smart contract. And so, I think the idea of making Ethereum faster, directionally it's a good idea, right? Going from 12 seconds to 4 seconds. But, I don't necessarily think that is what Ethereum is best at even. I think what Ethereum is best at is a thing that it's already doing better than anyone else, and it will continue to do better than anyone else.
100% agree. There's this guy named Max Resnick, and I really admire and appreciate him because he's himself and he completely will argue and talk shit to you straight to your face. So he completely disagrees with you and with me. So it is interesting to kind of get other people's perspective if you want to look at the tweet that I had and then look at the quote tweet, but also look at some of the, from him, but also look at some of the stuff that he's talked about in the past. And he was at World Computer Day arguing the same topic also. So anyway, now let's get on to AVS stuff. I think that this has a little bit to do with that conversation, right? Because we're talking about EigenLayer, we're talking about AVSs, and at the end of the day, we're talking about extending Ethereum security to build out really interesting new products and new services and just new protocols and applications ultimately. So I want to hear from all of the founders here. All of you are building out AVSs. I would love to understand, in maybe a 30-second or 45-second clip, what are you building, and maybe the value proposition of building it as an AVS.
Okay. Actually, we are building a user security network. We call it GoPlus security. Our mission is to protect every transaction of every users in Web3. So, but in previous few years, we noticed that many security companies, their services are very centralized, right? So the result is decided by them. But we think it's not very healthy in Web3 world. So we want to build a decentralized user security network, and every transaction will be analyzed by our intelligence system. But we want to build this intelligence system on a decentralized environment. So that's why we choose AVS as our solution. We think that AVS can make us can make it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Michael. I built Brevis. So Brevis is a smart off-chain verifiable computing platform. What that means is that it allows you to offload very complex and data-heavy computation from the very expensive on-chain environment to an off-chain, very low-cost off-chain environment. You generate a result, but at the same time, you also generate a ZK proof of the computation process. So then you take the result and the computation proof and submit it back to the blockchain, so blockchain can use the computation result directly, just as if the entire computation is done on blockchain in a 100% trustworthy way. The first product we provide is the ZK coprocessor that allows smart contract to have access to historical on-chain data, such as event, transaction, and states, and do arbitrary computation on top of them.
Awesome. So I'll keep this short. Lagrange builds two core things. The first being a SQL-based ZK coprocessor. I think Mo gave a good explanation of the design pattern of a coprocessor. What makes ours very unique is it's production ready and is able to prove arbitrary SQL computation. Think of Dune Analytics, but verifiable for your smart contract. The second thing we build is a decentralized network that generates these proofs for our coprocessor, for our interop proofs, and for a number of other proofs for our counterparties and our friends. And the thing that makes that unique is it's the only actual production-grade decentralized proving system in the space. We have some great research that we've put into auction design, mechanism design, and transaction fee pricing on highly decentralized proving architectures.
So Nuffle, we're building the first sort of universal restaking protocol that settles on Eigenlayer. So what does that mean? Basically, you can stake any token from any L2, L1, we take the rest. So we have an AVS that does message passing in the background, but essentially the benefit is users don't have to bridge anything. So if you're an Arbitrum, you can stake your ARB. If you're in Polygon, you can stake your Pol. So we'll be extending to a bunch of L2s in the next quarter, and then also some of the L1s like Near, because we spun out of Near almost 5 or 6 months ago. So that's been the direction, and AVS empowers all the logic in the background.
So all of you are founders, and all of you have a lot of technical expertise in the domain that you're building for, obviously. I'm curious if you can kind of take some of that and apply it to this question. I would love to hear a discussion around this because I think it would be kind of fun. It wasn't part of the original questions that were given to you all, so you don't have to answer if you don't want to, because it might take some thinking. But if anyone has an answer, that would be interesting, I think, as a topic for us. Basically, though, I would love to understand, like, if any of you all have an unpopular opinion that you have conviction about that might not be the consensus of what most other people think, relative to just this entire space, like in the blockchain world.
I can start with Eigenlayer. So obviously, a lot of people are here coming from Ethereum, but we've been thinking about verifiable cloud, right? It's where we're backing with Ethereum. But the thesis that we had in Nuffle is like, well, if we're building this verifiable cloud, why are we just building on Ethereum? Can't we extend it to other layers? And obviously, the price and the risk are different. But can you build this global marketplace and have access to, let's say, other assets at a cheaper price and different risk parameters? So that's why we've been, I guess, like not the consensus for now, but it's going to be very, very common when AVSs start to pay their rewards. So that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, I have one that wasn't very controversial, that was very controversial, now isn't, that every app is going to be a verifiable app. That's not controversial anymore because of the EF's announcement yesterday. My other one, it's going to be very controversial and might get attacked outside. But I don't think what crypto's lacking is builders. I think there's a lot of builders. I think what crypto's lacking is commercially minded companies that can build something durable. People who want to marry, in effect, building and building a revenue generating business. So both technological implementation and the building of a company and a structure that can last. That's what the space needs. Those are the hardest people to find because they're not found working at companies. They're often found already building something that is commercially viable.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if this is a kind of going to be a controversial opinion, but I think rollups are great, but they're not enough for the blockchain to actually kind of reach mass adoption. Rollup is a way to scale blockchain, but at the same time, we started with like 3 dimensions in the trade-off space in layer 1 blockchain, right? So it's decentralization, security, and scalability. So the rollup is basically introducing another dimension in the trade-off space, and to get more scalability. That new dimension is state unification and user unification. So rollup as the technology is amazing, but it's good for certain use cases, but it does cause the overhead of liquidity fragmentation, user fragmentation, state fragmentation. So I think like what off-chain verifiable computing can provide here is to introducing yet another dimension to essentially kind of merge the gap between the unity and scalability kind of a trade-off, so that we can introduce this kind of a new asynchronous pattern where you can send something off to an off-chain environment that do the computation and return it back without actually causing any kind of a liquidity fragmentation. So it's going to be used for different use cases, but it's something that I think will not be able to handle by just rollup architectures.
I have the almost the same idea that I think for blockchain systems, the security and the decentralizing is definitely the most important things. But I think rollup is good, but we need to find more like application and user scenario, and we should bring like real world needs from real world to blockchain. So I think that's the most important things that current we should do, and we should like for us we want to solve the security problem for every users, because we think that's a fundamental things for mass adoption. So I think bring more things from real world to blockchain is the most important. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. To the next question. The value proposition of EigenLayer, part of it is that it makes it easier to build these types of services. But as you know, as founders that were early in the EigenLayer ecosystem for the most part, there was, and there kind of still is, a bit of what the Solana people would call chewing glass because of how early things were and things are. And the, I would say abstractions are not as good as they will be a year from now or even 2 years from now. One of the things that we're highly focused on is improving the developer experience, improving our documentation, improving best practices. And as we roll out the EigenLayer roadmap, these things will become easier along with all of the tooling and things that we're offering. And then we're seeing teams like Layer, Authentic, and AltLayer, and all these teams that are building out really, really high quality abstractions to make this even easier, right? So ultimately, the goal is kind of to make building an AVS as simple as writing a smart contract. How do you think this is going to affect the entire blockchain world over the next few years, if that becomes the case, in terms of if someone wants to build a smart contract, they write a few lines of code and they deploy it. Now they want to build out an Oracle or some other type of off-chain service that is verifiable, and they can make it just as easy. Like, how do you see that affecting this entire industry?
Yeah.
If that happens.
Yeah, so one thing I personally find incredibly exciting about EigenLayer is when we look at the things in crypto that are interesting now, zero knowledge, FHE, TEE, AI, all of them are very expensive operationally. To run any of that infrastructure costs a lot of money. And when you have something that's operationally expensive, you can't have something that has a high capital cost too, or the network becomes untenable at scale. If it's $50,000 a month to run a node, it can't also be 20% APY on the staked capital you have to pay. It just wouldn't work. And so EigenLayer is the only place in crypto where you can access economic security at a low cost of capital, which makes it naturally well suited for anything that's on the cutting edge and anything that's emergent in crypto. And that's what I'm the most excited about with EigenLayer.
Yeah, I mean, just like from our own experience, we started working the EigenLayer kind of developer ecosystem from the early days, and we have witnessed a lot, right? So like in the beginning there weren't a lot of tooling, but right now if you want to launch a new AVS, there are so many different tools that you can choose from, and especially with like kind of many of the off-chain components like signature aggregation and stuff like that. Will make the entire process of launching EigenLayer AVS so much simpler. And the go-to-market speed is also going to be awesome. So like if you guys are interested in working on anything that related to proof of stake security, things are rapidly evolving and has been becoming very awesome.
Yeah, I can mention here. So one of the things that we decided when we were at Nuffle is like we found finding new blockchains boring. We were at near L1, we built an L1, and then there's a bunch of folks that were launching L2s. But people still want to launch them because there's an incentive to do so, right? So how can you get AVS ecosystem almost like as par and maybe like give the incentives to launch rather than launch a roll-up, I'm going to launch an AVS. So maybe that's the thing that we need to have. And the other thing is, even if people are launching L1s, L2s, how do you make the token usable? And there's like other sort of infrastructure like Oracle, ZK coprocessors, whatever you want to, ZK-TLS even. And even if it's being used in that blockchain, can you back it up with the token that is native to that blockchain? So that obviously increases the usage of the token. So that's how we're thinking about it from our perspective.
For my opinion, I think everyone who wants to build a decentralized system or like some network, you have to make your system decentralization, and I think that's a very huge work for them to finish that or to think out a solution, because you have to think about that your system, how can your system not be attacked, or like you have to design your consensus mechanism. So I think AVS will be in the future will be the most important part of every decentralized system, because you don't have to care about that. How can you build a decentralized mechanism or like system to prevent to promise your security of your system? So I think that will be the most important part in every in a decentralized system stack. So that's also our thinking about the AVS in the future.
Okay, so we're out of time. I just wanted to say thank everyone for coming and checking this out, and thank you to AltLayer for putting this on. If you're interested in building an AVS, I highly recommend checking out AltLayer Wizard. It's a really nice product that allows you to kind of spin up different types of AVSs really simply, and it keeps getting better and better. They're adding a lot of improvements. So if you've already checked it out, check it out again. And that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.